Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our next panel discussion, peering into the future of Industry 4.0 or 5.0. What lies ahead? As we embark on the journey towards the future of manufacturing, I'm sure we find ourselves at the intersection of the Industry 4.0 and the rapidly emerging Industry 5.0. Our esteemed panelists today, experts in their own fields, will discuss and share their perspectives through the uncharted territories of technology, automation, sustainability, the human-machine collaboration that define the future of the industry. I'd now like to invite all our panelists on stage for this interesting, amazing session with all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Kamna Sama, Director, IT Cummins. Can we clap and welcome Kamna Sama? We'd also like to welcome Namrata Mahendro, CDO, Aditya Birla Chemicals, to please join us on stage. Can we clap and welcome all of them, everybody? Mr. Jagdish Ramaswamy, President and Chief Digital Officer, Hindalco Industries Limited. Mr. Sunil Mehta, General Manager, Mitsubishi Electric in India. Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, Executive Vice President at Visionet Systems. Mr. Partha Kamakar, Vice President, Business Head, Professional Lighting, Havells India Limited. To moderate the session, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Sunil David, Digital Technology Consultant, Ex-Regional Director, AT&T, Co-Chair of Digital Communication Group of IET Future Tech Panel, NASSCOM IoT Tech Guru. Well, we are almost set, peering into the future of the industry 4.0, 5.0. Let's see what lies ahead. Can we clap for the wonderful panel on stage, please? Over to Mr. Sunil.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to thank ITP Media for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel discussion. And the topic for today is peering into Industry 4.0, 5.0, what lies ahead. We were actually given about 45 minutes for this discussion, but we were asked to curtail it to 30 minutes. So given that time constraint, even my context setting, which was supposed to be 3 to 4 minutes, I'm just trying to confine it to a minute now. So what we want to do over the next 30 minutes is to first understand from a manufacturing standpoint, before we look into the future, what is happening today. And we are going to hear the practitioners to talk about how their organizations are going through this whole journey, Industry 4.0, before they transition to Industry 5.0. And we'll also want to hear from them in terms of how are they preparing the roadmap for Industry 5.0, right? So we're going to hear the practitioner's perspective. We have just one exception. We have Sandeep, who would give a perspective from a solution provider standpoint. What are they doing for the manufacturers, right? And to make this very, very simple, what we are doing is we are just having one round of questions. We have no time for taking audience questions. So after we finish with the panel, you all are free to reach out to the panelists and pick their brains. And I'm going to start now by getting Namrata. Namrata, I've had the opportunity to hear you before, and it's really fascinating in terms of how your group have a very clear vision when it comes to digital and the pillars that you have from a digital standpoint and the accelerators. Can you share with the audience, it's a two-part question. One is, how's the journey so far? And secondly, how are you all preparing for the impending Industry 5.0 revolution, which is going to be very human-centric and where sustainability is going to be a major issue?
Thanks, Sunil. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the Manufacturing Today team over here for inviting me to this panel discussion. To respond to Sunil's question, I think looking at the here and now, I joined the Aditya Birla Chemicals sector about 3.5 years back. And I think over this 3.5 year period, which was just before the pandemic hit us, it's been a very, very interesting journey. When I say interesting, what I mean by that is that I was brought into a situation where one had to work within constraints in all shapes and forms. But there was also a huge opportunity for innovation in those constraints. So the way I look at it is, in the course of the last 3 to 4 years, the role of the CDO, CIO has completely changed. They've today had to wear many, many more hats than what they were traditionally doing, which was predominantly from a CIO perspective, looking at a lot of the operations and keeping the lights on. Today, you are taking on the role of a strategist. With digital and technology, business models have got disrupted, operating models have got disrupted. So that's one new role that you're taking on, where you're partnering with business as opposed to, just keeping the lights on. The second role is that of an innovator. We've seen the pace of technology grow exponentially. We have seen what has happened in less than 12 months with Gen AI, and prior to that with a number of other technologies. So we're contending with those technologies as a custodian of making sure that the organization is making the right technology choices. When you have this influx of technologies coming at you, you have to understand what's the business strategy and what are the technologies which would align best at what point in time. So there's the short-term view of here and now, what would make sense, and then there is the medium to long-term view, because if you were looking at quantum, you can't plan for it 5 years or a decade from now. You need to plan for it now for it to actually, come to the fore in a decade. So given that, I think that role is the second role that one has had to take on over the last 3 or 4 years. The third role is really in terms of making sure that you are a futurist. You're able to look into, with all the volatility that is out there, you're able to look at what are the different changes which are happening in the market. You're supposed to start predicting what may happen, what technologies from Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 will become important. The focus with Industry 5.0 on human centricity and sustainability, the well-being of the human and the planet, or the people and the planet, is where you need to start looking at moving your attention from just a productivity focus. So I think all of that you need to plan for right now. So the futurist role is sort of keeping all of that in mind. From an on-ground perspective, I would say there were 2 or 3 things that we've done extremely well. We have the benefit of having the Aditya Birla Group, and therefore under the aegis of that, we have followed a 3-pronged strategy. One, we are very, very strong on a platform approach for a lot of the work that we do. And therefore, while we may start with pilots and POCs, we may have our own lighthouses that we scale up. But then the end state for us, in many cases, whether it's on the infra or the application side, is looking at a platform approach. The second aspect is around building COEs, which allows us to then tap into those. So as innovation is happening, you're not just relying on your own capabilities, but you are benefiting from a larger COE that you can tap into, that you can partner with internally to actually accelerate your transformation journeys, along with partnering with the external startup ecosystem. And we do actually have our own startup ecosystem also, called the AAA partner, that we use very, very frequently for different problems that we look to solve. And I think the third aspect for me would be in terms of making sure that, in the here and now, we are measuring what we are doing, because that focus on ROI allows us to make sure that, there is business alignment, there's business buy-in, and we are doing stuff which creates business impact, and it's not just a technology, experiment that we are focusing on. Coming to the second part, and I'll, share that very quickly in the interest of time. In terms of Industry 5.0, as I said, the 2 pillars of human centricity and sustainability are extremely important as we look at it. I think being in the chemical industry, safety is of paramount importance for us. And so that has been, in terms of all our transformation initiatives, in terms of all our focus areas, safety has been sort of, at the heart and center of what we do. I would have shared a lot more on it, but again, have a little bit of a constraint, but happy to take the conversation offline. And on the sustainability front, it's about getting the foundations right. How do you use digital to digitize just the compliance part of it, which in itself is a mammoth task, And then beyond that, how do you actually use digital in terms of new products, new technologies, which will actually enable a lot of green chemistry to come into play. And I know that's more of an R&D play, but again, how do you actually accelerate that R&D process for your R&D teams using technologies, whether it is through simulation, whether it's through scenario planning. Again, there's some work that we're doing in that space. The second area that I'd say on sustainability is the low-hanging fruit is the energy side. And there's work that we've done in the past, and we continue to do that, which is of importance and creates business impact right away. And the third and the last area under the sustainability aegis for us is really looking at how do we create more transparency, when we are looking at sustainability. So there again, there is a bunch of initiatives which we are exploring, across the supply chains, across our yarn business, across different businesses that we have within the chemical sector.
Thank you so much, Namrita. And just one thing which really caught my attention, the role of the CDO, trying to keep the lights on, at the same time innovate and be the futurist. I think it's going to get even tougher by the day, perhaps, right? Let me move to Sandeep. And Sandeep, you represent an organization, VisionNet, which provides solutions to large manufacturers, not just, globally, right? So can you share some of the learnings and, some of the areas where you're seeing, manufacturers really seeing value from some of the solutions that you're offering? So can you elaborate for the audience?
So thank you, Sunil. It's nice to be here in the midst of the happening, India as a happening destination in the world. So just to cover what Sunil was talking about, what are we doing in this particular space, right? First of all, I just wanted to remove the myth from all of you that Industry 4.0 to 5.0, it's a step journey. It's not a step journey, right? So it is something that you can actually adopt it while you're doing things actually. And the more sooner you adopt Industry 5.0, you don't have to take a step journey. Just like actually a lot of telecom people went to 4G and now to 5G without going through 3G, I think it's an important opportunity, especially for Indian manufacturers, to jump to 5.0. The only difference, if you look at it from 4.0 to 5.0, is it's moved from human-machine interface to human-machine collaboration, which AI and ML is bringing. It's more focused on sustainability, which is carbon emission, net zero focus, and the resilience, because COVID taught us about why a supply chain is important and not just your manufacturing, but the entire supply chain is important. So if these three aspects, if you're looking at it, you're already towards your Industry 5.0 journey. And that's what we are trying to also do with respect to giving the customers the solutions to jump into Industry 5.0, taking these three into account. Right now, the major focus, let me start with resilience first. So resilience is, like I said, actually earlier focus on automation and digitalization was restricted to basically look at how your product is going to be better, innovative, and less operational cost and everything, right? That was a focus. Now with the supply chain coming in, you are moving that particular focus from a product to a customer. So customer is becoming centric and not the product, right? So that is the major difference, that when you move your centricity from your product to your customer, then you talk about hyper customization or hyper personalization. Because then you start looking at every single aspect of your supply chain and not only manufacturing, to basically cover it and get to the customer that needs that particular hyper customization or personalization. So we do have some products into that. We have a product called Partner Link, which basically connects all these particular dots of multiple silo systems that is there within your organization to give you a unique view of the supply chain across the process. And by getting that, you are able to achieve two things. One, your supply chain becomes consistent. So the more data in the hands of the people, every single person in that supply chain is empowered to basically now take decision at their fingertips, which allows you to go to the customer faster. Right up to from your research to your manufacturing to your basically customer support, all the team starts working together in one particular view with the data coming in as a centricity. Second, it allows you for resilience, which is again pretty much important in the supply chain. that you know where your breaking points are, where your bottlenecks are, which supply chain is breaking. Suddenly you have a major demand from a customer point of view or a large inventory piling up. If you don't have that particular data in hand, then you are actually looking at your demand supply equation, which can go wrong. So you basically start working as part of the resilience where it's on demand need of what you're creating in the system, thereby giving a business outcome. So some of these particular products we are trying to take it to the market. We also are working with a pharma company in terms of hyper-personalization. So when we talked about hyper-personalization, we all know Dolo. I'm sure everybody in this room had Dolo. There should not be a single person who has not had Dolo actually. If you can, I think you should get an award. But I think that same Dolo principle, if you look at it, it was a generic drug, right? And now people are talking of a very hyper DNA-based drug that can come out, which can take the DNA of the patient and then basically give a very specialized drug matching to the DNA of the patient. So it's very, very personalized. But if you have to get to that stage, you need that entire ecosystem to be working. You need to be monitoring that patient 24/7, pre-applying the drug, during applying the drug, and after applying the drug, right? And that's where actually the era of this personalization is happening. We are proud that we are helping one of the particular global pharma companies in terms of creating this whole data set, which will come to this hyper-personalization, even from the drug, which we never could imagine. So some of the thoughts, Sunil.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. So we are moving from this era of mass customization to hyper-personalization, which will perhaps happen in manufacturing sooner rather than later. Thank you. Let me move to Sunil. And Sunil, you represent a 100-year-old brand, Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
You're also the president of Automation Industry Association. And I happened to hear one of your interviews in which you mentioned that today in India, the level of automation is a little low.
Yes.
And if you really want to really drive Industry 4.0 automation initiatives, your foundation has to be strong, right? So can you share with us your views on overall automation and also specifically within Mitsubishi, how are you all progressing as far as your Industry 4.0 and 5.0 journey?
Yeah, good afternoon and thank you for this opportunity. I represent Mitsubishi Electric, being a Japanese company. See, Industry 4.0 is the terminology what Germans bring in. Whereas Mitsubishi, being a Japanese company, this has been implemented way back in year 2003 in our own manufacturing plant in Nagoya. Germans started talking about Industry 4.0 in somewhere 2011. What happens is that if you see the manufacturing in Japan, you talk about all the OEMs, Toyota, Nissan, Honda, and Suzuki's and all these things. You talk about Canon, you talk about Mitsubishi. The production volumes are very high and the qualities are superior. So that is the way where we land. Regarding Mitsubishi Electric, to 2021 we celebrated our century. 1921 was Mitsubishi Electric was established in Japan. So actually there was a big different things. And we say that it's an e-factory. And when Mitsubishi, we implemented in our own manufacturing plant. In fact, in Pune, you are most welcome to see the manufacturing plant, what we are in Pune. And recently, we are also setting up a new plant in Talegaon, where we'll have all these core technologies implemented in our own manufacturing plant. Now, coming to the question, whether we are industry, what are the automation levels we have? In my view, yes, the big OEMs like Suzuki, Honda, Bajaj, and all these people, a lot of automation is already in place. But when we talk about MSMEs and SMEs, still there is a lot of way to go because you need automation. Unless and until you have automation on the machine, on the equipment layer, it's very difficult to get the data from the machine. And we have legacy machines. We have very lot of brownfield or greenfield projects. Greenfield projects are very less, but there are many machines which are already running and they are in production for 20, 25 years. And they are producing the products. So people are not ready to throw away those machines. So upgradations of those machines, getting the data from these machines, these are the challenges. Applications of robotics also is an area where we are still lacking compared to China, Korea, and Japan. Because the statistics always talks about number of robots, 10,000 people and the number of robots. The world statistics shows that we are very, very miniature in applying the robotics in India. So that is the overall area where we need to look into it. Automation is a key and automation will be the foundation to get the data from any machine. It's a small or big machine, SPMs or whatever it may be. So that is a very, very important area we need to play a key role. Japan started talking about Society 5.0. we talk about Industry 4.0 or Industry 5.0, the Japanese people always talk about Society 5.0, where they are talking about involvement of the manpower and the skills and all these things. So that's a very, very important, another area where they are looking into it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sunil. So that point on Society 5.0, I think we'll build on that later when we talk about the human dimension as it relates to Industry 5.0. Let me move to Kamna. So Kamna, you represent, again, a global brand, and your past experience with TCS, 18 years there, part of the digital experience team, providing solutions to the global manufacturing companies. So with that global experience, and plus with your current role in Cummins, can you share with the audience, one is, okay, any key learnings from what you got while you were in your TCS role, and specifically within Cummins, how are you all going about your whole Industry 4.0 journey, Kamna?
Thank you, Sunil, for the question, and thank you, Manufacturing Today, for this opportunity. I would say in the last 6 years, when we started on digital transformation for global manufacturing organizations, we actually started embarking on the journey of customer experience. So at that time, being a B2B-centric industry, we were trying to adopt on SMAC, which was social mobility as a channel, analytics and cloud. So that is what the focus was for manufacturers. And though, I would say automotive obviously has a lot of use cases, but it was a very insightful observation for me that I found that process industry, discrete manufacturing, agriculture, these kind of domains were actually trying a lot of variety of use cases. And geographies like MEA, APAC were way ahead. They were exploring these experimental use cases. They were building up COEs to build capabilities and skills within the teams. They were all out exploring, right? It was very, very interesting. Another aspect I realized is when you execute from a global manufacturing organization, these initiatives, the rigor of the C-suite was very, very high at that point of time. At the same time, a lot of experimentation happened. However, now things have changed, right? The business value is asked as a first question for any of the Industry 4.0, 5.0 initiatives. So while 5 years back, it was more on experiment. Now it is more on realization, is how I would see. Another observation that I had in that role was there were, as an SI partner, like I played on the other side of the fence as well. As an SI partner, when we implemented digital accelerators and solutions and platform solutions, there were some solutions which were easily cross-deployable across industries, right? So, for example, solutions for functions like HR, finance, whether you build cognitive services, analytics, solutions were repeatable, irrespective of the industry, but there were some solutions which were very, very contextual and had to be customized for the customer, like manufacturing cases. So if I just have to share an experience like digital track and trace, like a typical end-to-end traceability, including the upstream and downstream, and the assembly line traceability is such a common use case. But when we tried to adopt it across the industries, I found a very interesting insight that applying it to a process industry product versus a cement industry product versus a fragrance industry product, which is the raw material is very different, the finished good is very different. The solution is not replicable as it seems so. So that was one of the insights that I could derive in my previous role, that cross-deployment has to be understood well enough before going ahead and proposing to different domains within manufacturing as well. Coming to your second point on the Cummins journey, I think in our Cummins Industry 4.0 journey, we have 6 pillars. And while we talk about Industry 5.0, to me, which is just an augmentation of Industry 4.0 with aspects of sustainability, human centricity, we already had it as one of the pillars. So one of the pillars in our 6 pillars are people. So when we started off making the strategy itself, at a Cummins level, we included people as an important pillar in that journey. And we also, way ahead, were never targeting a hyper-automation. So there was never a target to, get into a phase of optimization where it is affecting the socio-economic sustainability. However, we started off, so if you really want to understand, now we are in a journey where we are looking extensively on robotics and automation. So as we speak in Cummins, in India itself, we have almost 20 cobots that is across the plants, and we are using it from assembly line to palleting to welding, all of the various works that happens within the shop floor. But at the same time, there is a human element to it on how the operators are getting skilled to work along and adjacent to cobots. We are also doing application integration with cobots. So how the cobot can integrate with a packship application, for example. So if you have to really understand, the repeatable non-value adding work is getting automated, but at the same time, the workforce is getting skilled to use these new technologies as well. Another area I would talk about, Industry 4.0, where we are adopting especially, is also on the IoT space. So we are getting on to build machine health monitoring. We are connecting our plants so that the OE monitoring is happening and we can do a better comparative analysis and reduce that. That is another area. We are also focusing on getting warehouse level automations in place, wherein we are getting IMR solutions along with AVGs. We are getting ASRS kind of systems, which is automatic storage and retrieval systems, so that the material movement can happen within the shop floor from, say, the warehouse to the assembly line. So that's another area we are focusing apart from robotics. On the analytics space, I would say we are starting on to build the enterprise manufacturing data hub. So we are right now more in the area of prescriptive analytics, where we are capturing the data. The future that we are targeting is definitely on prediction. So how do we get into condition-based monitoring, where we can predict a spindle, having a failure. That's the end state that we are targeting for, but we started that journey already in our plants in India. And overall, I would say we are also focusing on additive manufacturing. So Cummins started off very early on 3D printing globally as well as a solution. So we are having fail-safe fixtures, prototyping happening through 3D printers as well. So slowly, steadily, in each of the areas, we have tried to start it off in various geographies, in fact, with various plants, understanding the maturity and then taking the I4.0 initiative. But I5.0 has already been principally there in our ecosystem, with focus on plant 2050 and reduce even energy management. So we were focusing on energy management, analytics as well by next year to get onto our plants.
Thank you so much, Kamna, for sharing all that. And you talked about 6 pillars, and one of the pillars is people. And it's a good segue to get Jagdish into the discussion. And Jagdish, you represent Hindalco, one of India's largest aluminium manufacturers. And just talking about the people dimension, before I ask you about your journey currently as far as Industry 4.0 is concerned, you made the statement, and I quote, that amazing people transform Hindalco digitally. Once the people own it with passion, it will happen. Can you elaborate more, Jagdish?
Sure. So we are short of time, so I'll keep it very simple and pointed. I think all my colleagues in the panel have pointed out all the important aspects. But let's talk about, as manufacturing industry, all of us know 2 systems that, one is WCM, world-class manufacturing, in some way or the other, all of us practice. Second, in the context of automobile engineering, is the TPS, Total Production System, right? So if you take those 2 and embed 2-3 important things in that. One is more consumer-centric. Second, digitally how you change the practices, where digital gets embedded in the practice. Third, ESG, just moving away from safety, environmental measurement to really making it a purpose-driven. So what is world now is digital WCM or digital TPS. And that's what I've seen even in Toyota, by the way. Now this transformation really is about how does your practices on the ground change. It's not about technology anymore, okay? There are 2 things. All the technology that we have spoken, I think you have money, your management has the intention. I think people are today spending money, and I'm sure many of you today have all the technologies that we spoke about. What makes the difference is how do you make it a way of life? And that's where the most important is people. And without people getting into the adoption and making it a way of life, the digital or ESG will be a failure. And I'll share with you a few things that we have done. One, when you look at WCM practices, you have this morning huddles, right? How are people using data in the morning huddle rather than just becoming subjective as to yesterday was good, today is better, saying that what is the data telling you about yesterday? So we said change the practice. Every WCM practice that you have, see how you can make those practice digitally engaging by using data across all levels. Starts from the operator. It also has to be translated to the contract workforce. It has to be translated to everybody. And I think the previous panel, I heard very interesting discussion about the people practice, how you have to translate these practices at multiple layers and make a way of life. So truly that's what we are doing at translate all these technologies into, so how does your maintenance practice change? How does your quality consistency practice change? How does your first pass yield change? All by using data and then making sure they are able to take decisions faster than what they were taking in the previous generation. I would say WCM to digital WCM, there is a generational gap. So you have to really, put this as people practices, change the practice of people in terms of manufacturing, in terms of how you behave and interact with your customer experience. She spoke about it. Everywhere it's important for us to define a new way of practice, document it, and consciously practice. And the middle managers will have to play a very, very crucial role. Today's youngsters, I think they are digitally savvy. You don't need to tell them. Today's youngsters are more purpose-driven, more sustainability-driven than the middle generation. So the challenge for us is how are we going to make this middle managers more digitally savvy, and that's what we are focusing on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Jagdish, for sharing that. And you said that as you use technology, make it a way of life. I think that's important. And you emphasized the importance of data, data-driven decision-making. Thank you so much. Let me move to Partha. And Partha, you represent a well-known brand, Havells, India's perhaps largest fast-moving electric goods manufacturer. And as I was researching about your company, last year I noticed that as part of your strategic initiatives, there were two which really caught my attention. One, you talked about increasing digitization, and second is sustainability, which is again very core to Industry 5.0. So can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of how Havells is kind of preparing for this transition, Partha?
Thank you. First of all, let me just share, I come from lighting department of Havells. Okay. And lighting is such a small subject in all the manufacturing industry, but still I would say it's a very small cost, very high impact element of a manufacturing industry, where if there is no light, there is no work, there is no productivity, no digitization, nothing. So we come from that part of the ingredient in a manufacturing industry. So what we have been doing on digitization, as your question, during the COVID times, we had some great experiences of digitization where we were able to connect all the suppliers as well as our distributors, all the employees, and we had extreme level of information exchange of material, of sales, of production, of dealer, distributor, their performances. And we have, I can proudly say that the system which we now use on digitization, it is one of the most formidable systems in terms of transparency across the ecosystem of all our suppliers as well as our distributors and dealers and customers. I would like to emphasize on one more area, that is when it comes to digitization, it is one aspect of it is how we are making use of digitization in our factories, but also another aspect is how we are providing digitization to our consumers and customer experience. So that's where I would like to emphasize that when you see the new standards which are coming up, everything is becoming more human-centric. So as it is human-centric, only I think we had COVID to give us a jolt and make us realize that we have to make things human-centric. Otherwise, actually, everything has to be human-centric. So it was like a blow on us to make us realize that, yeah, you have to make it human-centric. Now we have the well standards. We have various other regulations which are coming, which are human-centric. So what we are doing in terms of our solutions, light can be just light or it can be right light. So just light can be, as we are eating, we can eat anything, and right food is also there. So in lighting, we have phenomenal innovations, how we make it very close to natural light in terms of its spectrum, in terms of its glare limitation, in terms of its comfort and stroboscopic effect in case of such kind of manufacturing industry. So we are able to now bring in a lot of solutions which are bringing huge safety to the employees as well as workers, and also digitization in the form of how you can do asset management of each and every light equipment so that preventive maintenance can be done. You can do better energy saving and also have much better control of them. So that's how we are trying to make the digitization. And obviously, we have all spoken about sustainability, which is the core. I mean, every component we are choosing, every processes, and the final product has to be somewhere in the line of the circular economy. And that's how we are trying to bring in solutions and various products in that.
Right, thank you so much, Partha. We could have continued the discussion for a longer time, but we have these constraints, and
Time's
Sujata's
up.
giving me that royal stare, so I better stop now. So I think what very clearly came out is the human dimension, but what I would want you all to do is please meet the panelists after we finish. I'm not even going to attempt to do a paraphrase of all what they spoke and summarize because we just don't have the time for that. But I wish to take this time to thank all the panelists for sharing their perspectives. It was a wonderful discussion. I hope you found that very useful. And on that note, I close the session. Back to you.
I'll request you to come forward for a group photograph together. While they do that, I will invite on stage Mr. Hafiz Sheikh, Business Head, ITP, to please join us to felicitate our panelists. I'd also like to invite on stage Mr. Lokendra Singh, Managing Director, Ross Process, to please join us on stage to do the honors. Thank you.